Hey, it's Hammer Time! On this episode of Hammer Time, we are very lucky to be joined by the top law enforcement officer in Maricopa County, Sheriff Paul Penzone. Sheriff, welcome.
No, thank you. This is an honor to be here with you and looking forward to having a good conversation.
What has jumped out as maybe the biggest sort of surprise to you in the 2 years that you've been in this office?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say it was a surprise, but you'd like to think you're prepared for it until you're actually dealing with it, and that is the political element. The energy and the politics that have been infused into law enforcement, specifically into this particular office, for such a long period of time to, I don't want to necessarily say undo that, but to temper it and to ensure that political influences are not impacting how we do what we do, because public safety is for everyone. Public safety has, it should never be discriminatory, it should never be partisan, it should never be anything that is less than just and fair to everyone. So to kind of change that mentality internally as well as the external expectations has been probably one of the bigger challenges than I expected.
When you ran for this office a few years ago, you were going up against someone not just with pretty close to 100% national ID, someone that would get into the tabloids in England. I'm curious, why did you decide to take the plunge, and at the end of the day, what do you attribute your double-digit plus victory to?
All the things you just described. If you were to take that and say, what should law enforcement represent? It's quite the opposite. Law enforcement should represent just a humble confidence and strength that we have a responsibility to keep the public safe and to not be this shiny object that is always the center of your attention. If you enjoy sports and you go to a sporting event, when the officials are so involved that you no longer see the event and you just see the officials, you don't enjoy the experience. Law enforcement in many ways is similar to that. When we do our job well, you don't notice that we're there, but you're safe, you feel safe, and we don't need to remind you of it. When we do our job poorly and we want to be the focal point, then you live in this fear or this concern. So I wanted law enforcement to represent all that is great about the men and women, and it's this selfless commitment to public safety, to the service of others, not for accolades or for money, but for the sheer reward of knowing that you're making a difference in somebody's life.
There was a lot of concern, obviously, not just among the public, but the business community in terms of what was going on previously. And I just want to say that since you've come in, there has been calm, there's confidence in what's going on, there's a sense there's adult leadership, and that the day-to-day activities of keeping the people of Maricopa County safe are being attended to. That's the perception in the business community.
Well, I appreciate that greatly because although I'm somewhat of a transplant as a young man when I moved here, Arizona's home, and I love everything that it has to offer. And it disappoints me if our reputation does not truly represent who we are as people. And a lot of the things that we're representing our state, we're not consistent with who we are. It's very welcoming here. There's great opportunity. The sun shines 365 days a year, and there's so much positive to building a family in this community. That's what we should be focused on. And what I always found interesting is a lot of folks know the sheriff's name, but there are so many of my colleagues that are chiefs of other agencies that do an exceptional job, but no one knows their name. And that's how it really was intended to be.
I believe we're both East Coasters. New Jersey, I believe, New York. How did you wind up in Arizona? What drew you out here?
It was the climate. I was a young man, junior high, and my mother had severe respiratory problems. So at that time, the climate here has changed considerably with a lot of the foreign plants that are part of our community now, and the allergies, but it was the perfect climate for her needs health-wise. I'm Arizona, and I love everything it has to offer, so I'm really grateful that we did move out here and had the chance to grow up in this community.
Can you talk a little bit about your law enforcement career before becoming sheriff? I know you had a very distinguished career. Maybe talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I was very fortunate, and just like in this current situation, I'm blessed and privileged to be a sheriff, and it was no different when I was with the Phoenix Police Department. I worked in a lot of capacities. I was a training officer at one point in time. I worked on street crimes. I worked undercover in narcotics for several years, to include a stint with the Drug Enforcement Administration on a federal level. And then I worked in administration, which at the time I thought was punishment, but now that I have a budget of $380 million, I realize how important it is to be a good steward of taxpayer dollars. But I ran the silent witness program. And when I ran the silent witness program, we dealt with a baseline killer and a serial shooter. But my experience to work with other agencies around the valley as well as business leaders to try to suppress and mitigate crime and provide education was probably one of my greatest experiences there. I left fulfilled. I was one of those people that retired to move on to a new career, and it was really in the nonprofit industry. But it was solely not because I wanted to get away from law enforcement. I loved what I did. I just wanted to take that experience and apply it in a different way for the benefit of the community. And for whatever reason, as a man of faith, I would say the Lord led me back to law enforcement, where I feel very comfortable. And my commitment is just to try to be a deserving sheriff, one who, as you spoke of, represents the community because of who we are, not because of what I believe is best for me.
You and your office have been very aggressive in reaching out to different organizations and community leaders. What's your philosophy behind doing that?
Well, I'm surrounded by great people. And I don't just say that because it's something that leaders like to say just to give recognition. The men and women in the office who have been given the opportunity to thrive under leadership that empowers you, but sets expectations, has been rewarding for me. The community outreach team leads with their heart. You know, these are men and women who are veterans in law enforcement, yet they want to have a connection and they want to facilitate healthy solutions in the community and build relationships. So they're doing exceptional work. But from my position, I'm very, very thankful that when I ran, as well as when I was fortunate enough to be elected, business leaders throughout the community have embraced a relationship where they want to work with me to help ensure that we are successful as a law enforcement agency, because then everyone benefits. Economically, you know, as a family, as a community, we all benefit from a positive reputation of a safe community that is led by caring people who have humility, and I'm thankful for that.